Welcome, dear readers. Get ready for a thrilling journey of love, secrets, and survival. If you enjoy suspenseful stories filled with unexpected twists, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Now, let's dive into the story. Emily awoke to a world that seemed spun entirely from dreams. The first rays of dawn seeped through gauzy curtains in her luxurious honeymoon suite, casting soft, dancing patterns upon the satin sheets. The room was a masterpiece of understated elegance, polished marble floors, gentle hues of cream and blush, and artful touches that spoke of refined taste. Every detail whispered promises of a bright future and a love that transcended time. Lying on the bedside table was a small, handwritten note in delicate cursive. It read, "Good morning, my love. Mai ever moment be as radiant as your smile." In that moment, Emily felt as if she were wrapped in an ethereal cocoon of affection and security. The note was not merely a message, it was a tangible reminder of the passion and care that had defined her wedding day. Just hours earlier, beneath a sky awash with starlight, she had pledged her heart to Jason, a man whose smile had kindled a fire in her soul from the very first glance. As she stretched languidly and rose from the soft embrace of the bed, the aroma of fresh roses mingled with a faint scent of coffee drifting up from the adjoining kitchenette. Outside her suite's French doors, a private balcony offered a panoramic view of lush gardens, glistening pools, and manicured lawns that shimmered in the morning light. The resort itself seemed to exist in a realm of its own, where time slowed to honor beauty and romance. Emily moved slowly, savoring each moment as she prepared for the day ahead. Every detail, the subtle music playing in the background, the gentle hum of the air conditioner, the soft rustle of her silk robe, added layers to her sense of elation. Today she was not just a bride, she was a woman reborn in the splendor of new beginnings. In her heart, there was an unshakable conviction that this marriage was the fulfillment of every whispered wish, every secret hope of a life filled with passionate love and shared dreams. Yet, amid the perfection, a faint, inexplicable sensation tugged at the edges of her contentment. For a fleeting moment, as she admired the carefully arranged bouquets on the bedside table, a shadow of doubt brushed past her thoughts, a whisper of intuition that perhaps not everything was as it appeared. Still, Emily chose to embrace the luminous present. She smiled to herself, deciding that the day's beauty was too overwhelming to be marred by idle worry. After all, love, in its purest form, had the power to dispel even the darkest shadows. Jason, her devoted husband, had meticulously curated every aspect of their beginning. His gentle touch in leaving the note, the care with which he arranged the suite's decor, and the thoughtful little surprises scattered throughout the room spoke volumes of his adoration. In that moment, as Emily ran her fingers over the paper and savored the lingering warmth of his words, she allowed herself to believe that nothing could ever tarnish this perfection. The future beckoned with promises of shared laughter, quiet evenings, and the kind of deep companionship that would weather any storm. Outside, the world was waking slowly, much like her own tender heart. Birds began their morning chorus, and the distant murmur of other guests hinted at stories unfolding in parallel. Yet for Emily, time had come to a gentle standstill, a pause in which she could drink deeply of love and hope. With every breath, she embraced the promise of a new life, unaware that beneath the shimmering surface of her dreamlike happiness, a darker current was gathering. In that serene, sunlit moment, Emily was content to dwell in the light of love, her heart buoyed by the endless possibilities of tomorrow. The sweet, the note, and the soft glow of the morning all conspired to create an idyll so perfect that it seemed destined to last forever. Little did she know that as the day unfolded, the delicate threads of her newfound bliss would soon be tested by secrets and shadows that lurked just out of sight. That evening, as twilight draped the resort in hues of lavender and deep blue, Emily's joy began to mingle with an unanticipated sense of foreboding. The celebratory remnants of the wedding had faded into soft memories, leaving behind a quiet intimacy that both comforted and unsettled her. In the golden glow of candlelight that now filled the suite, every corner seemed to whisper promises and secrets alike. After a modest dinner in the softly lit dining room, Emily retired early to their suite, her mind still adrift in the euphoria of the day. But as the night deepened and the silence of sleep beckoned, an unexpected stirring of curiosity pulled her from the edge of slumber. Unable to shake the feeling that something was amiss, she rose and moved toward the bathroom, where the gentle sound of running water promised solace in routine. Peeking through the slightly ajar door, Emily caught a glimpse of Jason as he stepped out of the steaming shower. In that fleeting moment, as the mist clung to his skin, a detail, one she had never noticed before, seized her attention. There, sprawling across his broad back, was a tattoo, a large, stark skull split by a jagged lightning bolt. The design was rendered in bold, inky black, its contours sharp and unforgiving against the soft flesh of his skin. Time seemed to suspend as Emily's heart pounded with a mixture of astonishment and dread. This was not the image of a man whose past she thought was unblemished by secrets. The tattoo was both beautiful in its artistry and haunting in its symbolism, a mark that suggested a history far removed from the tender husband who had captivated her heart. How had she never seen it before? And why had he never spoken of it? The questions collided in her mind like shards of broken glass. In that split second, the familiar warmth of her love for Jason was tainted by the bitter chill of uncertainty. Every memory of his gentle touch and reassuring smile now felt shadowed by the mystery of that ominous emblem. Had he hidden this secret deliberately, or was it a relic of a past he had long since buried beneath layers of careful charm? The tattoo, with its eerie design, was a silent testament to a part of him she had never known, a part that now threatened to shatter the delicate illusion of their perfect union. Emily retreated quietly from the door, her mind racing with a torrent of unspoken fears. The image of the skull, split as if by fate itself, haunted her every thought. In the solitude of the darkened corridor, she felt both betrayed and bewildered, as though the man she had so cherished had been concealing an entirely different identity. The romance of the day, with its soft laughter and tender promises, now lay under a heavy pall of doubt. The suite, once a sanctuary of love and hope, transformed in her eyes into a chamber of secrets. Every familiar object, a vase of fresh roses, the delicate china on the side table, now seemed to murmur warnings in hushed tones. Even the gentle hum of the air conditioner could not dispel the ominous tension that had taken root in her heart. The unanswered questions loomed large. What was the meaning of that tattoo? Could it be a symbol of something far more sinister than a mere artistic flourish? Was the man she had married hiding a past steeped in danger and darkness? With the night growing deeper, Emily's thoughts turned inward. She recalled fleeting moments during the wedding day, a hesitation in his smile, a quick glance away when a certain subject was mentioned. Every small detail now acquired a new, disquieting significance. As she lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, she resolved that the mystery of the tattoo must be unraveled, no matter how painful the truth might be. The intimacy of the night was shattered by the relentless beating of her heart, each thump echoing the silent question that would not let go: who was Jason really? And as the shadows of the room stretched long and the silence grew oppressive, Emily realized that her dream of happily ever after was now intertwined with a secret that might unravel everything she had ever believed in. In the hours just before dawn, when the world outside was still cloaked in darkness, Emily lay awake in the heavy silence of the suite. The familiar softness of the bed, once a sanctuary of warmth and intimacy, now felt strangely alien. Every creak of the old house, every distant sound of the resort settling into the night, seemed amplified by the storm of questions raging within her. The image of the tattoo, its jagged lines and sinister symbolism, had etched itself into her mind. It was as if a stranger had taken residence on Jason's back, a silent specter of a past he had carefully concealed. Though he lay asleep beside her, his steady breathing a comforting rhythm, Emily felt a profound disconnect. The man who had filled her with hope and tenderness now seemed shrouded in mystery, his identity fractured by secrets that lurked just beneath the surface. Unable to quell the swirling thoughts, Emily turned over repeatedly, seeking refuge in the fading embers of sleep. Her eyes traced the familiar contours of Jason's face, searching for any sign of the man she thought she knew. Yet, every time she looked at him, she saw hints of something unspoken, a flicker of shadow behind his calm gaze that suggested depths too dark to fathom. The gentle rise and fall of his chest, the soft murmur of his breathing, all took on a new, unsettling significance. In the stillness of the early morning, as the first pale light crept in through the window, Emily's mind replayed the moment she had seen the tattoo. The memory was vivid, a silent revelation that had upended her world. She wondered how she had missed it for so long. Had Jason been so meticulous in his charm that he had hidden every imperfection? Or was there an entire chapter of his life that he had never allowed her to read? Her inner turmoil grew with every passing minute. The comfortable intimacy they once shared now felt like a well-rehearsed performance, a facade behind which a stranger resided. Every tender gesture, every whispered word of love that had once soothed her, now reverberated with a hollow mechanical quality. It was as if the very act of intimacy had been reduced to a series of scripted movements, a dance in which the real performer had long since vanished. Tears welled in her eyes as she contemplated the dichotomy of the man beside her. The love that had once filled her with warmth now mingled with a profound sense of loss, a loss not of the man he appeared to be, but of the truth that had been hidden from her. In the quiet darkness, Emily resolved to confront the reality of her situation, even as the fear of what she might discover tightened its grip on her heart. She would not allow the stranger in her bed to remain an enigma forever. As the pale light of dawn finally broke through the curtains, Emily lay still, her thoughts heavy with uncertainty. The silence of the room was punctuated only by her quiet, measured breaths, a steady rhythm that belied the chaos within. With each heartbeat, the question echoed louder in her mind: who was Jason, and what secrets did he keep behind that carefully constructed mask of love? And so, as the new day began, she vowed silently that she would uncover the truth, no matter the cost, even if it meant facing the man she had once loved as a complete stranger. That restless night, long after Jason had surrendered to sleep and the soft cadence of his breathing filled the quiet suite, Emily's need for answers could no longer be ignored. Unable to silence the gnawing doubts, she reached for her laptop, its screen a portal to a world beyond the four walls that now felt like a prison. With trembling fingers, she began a search that she knew could shatter the fragile foundation of her new life. At first, the queries were tentative, keywords and phrases that described the tattoo, the stark image of a skull divided by a jagged lightning bolt. The search results trickled in slowly, a mixture of artistic expressions and vague references to mysterious symbols. But as Emily refined her search with a desperate precision, the results began to change. One article led to another, and soon she found herself immersed in a web of information that painted a picture far darker than she could have imagined. The tattoo was not merely an aesthetic choice. Across several online reports, Emily discovered references to a notorious criminal organization, a syndicate involved in human trafficking, contract killings, and a network of underground operations that spanned continents. Each article confirmed the same grim details. The symbol, rendered in stark, unyielding ink, was the insignia of a group known for its ruthlessness and its penchant for erasing any trace of its existence. The more she read, the heavier the truth pressed upon her chest. In that dimly lit suite, surrounded by the cold glow of the laptop screen, the luxurious world that had once seemed so perfect now took on a sinister hue. The evidence was overwhelming, and every new piece of information felt like a shard of ice cutting through the warmth of her love for Jason. How could the man who had so tenderly captured her heart be linked to something so monstrous? The answer, if it existed, was buried deep within a past he had kept locked away. Emily's heart pounded as she scrolled through pages of chilling details and corroborated accounts. Each headline and every piece of evidence was a blow to the illusions she had built over the past few days. The tattoo, the mark that had first appeared as a curious aberration, was now a symbol of danger, a dark emblem that hinted at a life steeped in criminality and deceit. The realization was almost too much to bear. Every loving word, every tender smile from Jason now took on an ominous edge, as if they were all part of an elaborate charade designed to hide a truth too terrifying to face. 4 hours, Emily remained transfixed by the screen. Tears of disbelief mingled with anger as she processed the horrifying truth. The suite, once a sanctuary of love and hope, had transformed into a chamber of revelation, a place where every shadow held a secret and every whispered promise was tainted by deception. In that heavy silence, she understood that her life was now at a crossroads. To continue living in ignorance would be to surrender her very soul to a darkness she could no longer ignore. As the night deepened and the world outside slumbered, Emily resolved that she must confront this dark chapter of Jason's past. Even if it meant unraveling the very fabric of their shared dreams, she could not allow herself to be complicit in a lie that had so thoroughly tainted her newfound happiness. With a final lingering glance at the damning evidence on her screen, she closed the laptop slowly, each click of the keys echoing like a death knell for the life she thought she knew. In that lonely, heart-wrenching moment, surrounded by the remnants of shattered illusions, Emily steeled herself for the difficult journey ahead. The horrifying truth was now hers to bear, a burden that would change everything. And as she lay awake in the oppressive darkness, the seed of rebellion was planted deep within her soul, a silent promise that she would unearth every hidden secret, no matter how painful the revelation might be. The pale light of dawn brought no relief to Emily. Instead, it cast long, accusing shadows across the suite. With the horrifying revelations of the previous night still echoing in her mind, she resolved to piece together every fragment of Jason's carefully constructed life. The suite, once a haven of comfort, had transformed into a vault of secrets, secrets that she was now determined to unlock. Her first step was to search through Jason's personal belongings. With a mixture of trepidation and grim resolve, she approached his meticulously arranged suitcase, its leather exterior polished to perfection. As she unlatched the clasp and slowly lifted the lid, her heart pounded in her ears. Inside lay an array of objects, each organized with a precision that spoke of deliberate control: neatly folded shirts, a pair of cufflinks glinting softly in the morning light, and a slim, well-worn passport that seemed too pristine for a man of mystery. One by one, she examined every item with an intensity born of desperation. The clothes were unremarkable, arranged as if to erase any trace of disorder or past imperfections. There were no stray letters, no casual mementos that might hint at a life lived with spontaneity or vulnerability. Instead, every object was curated to perfection, an immaculate facade that left her with an unsettling emptiness. It was as though Jason had scrubbed his past clean, erasing every imperfection that might betray a hidden darkness. Emily's trembling fingers brushed over the smooth surfaces of his personal effects as she scoured for any clue that might explain the tattoo, the dangerous emblem that now haunted her dreams. But every device, the phone, the laptop, was a model of modern efficiency, devoid of the messiness of human error. There were no messages that hinted at secrets, no snapshots of a life beyond the carefully managed present. Instead, everything was sterile, sanitized, and shockingly controlled. It was a life in which even the most mundane details were perfected to keep any truth from surfacing. With each new discovery, a chilling realization took hold: she was not the one controlling this narrative. Rather, Jason had orchestrated every detail of his life with an unnerving precision, leaving no room for the spontaneity or imperfection that would reveal his true self. Every folder on his laptop, every text message on his phone, was a testament to the power he wielded over even the smallest details of their shared existence. The more she looked, the more it became clear that the love she had believed in was nothing more than an exquisitely staged performance. The knowledge stung like a betrayal, and as Emily slowly gathered the evidence of his careful curation, her resolve hardened. Each pristine object was a piece of a puzzle that, when fully assembled, might expose a man far removed from the tender husband she had once adored. In that quiet, desperate morning, she vowed that she would uncover every hidden chapter of Jason's past, even if it meant tearing apart the delicate veneer of their life together. Every detail, no matter how trivial it seemed, now took on profound significance. The carefully folded shirts, the spotless passport, even the absence of any disorganized residue in his digital life, all were clues in a mystery that threatened to unravel her entire world. As she closed the suitcase and set it aside, Emily felt the weight of a truth that was as heavy as it was inevitable. The man she loved had been living a lie, and now, with each carefully curated piece of evidence, she realized that the only way forward was to confront the darkness head-on. In that quiet, isolating moment, with the early morning light casting long shadows on the floor, Emily prepared herself for the dangerous journey ahead. The secret hunt had begun, and there was no turning back. Every detail, every carefully hidden truth, would now be brought into the light, no matter how painful the revelation might be. The following morning, as the resort awoke in a cascade of golden sunlight and gentle laughter, Emily donned the mask of a contented wife. Every step she took was measured, each smile practiced to perfection. Yet beneath her calm exterior, a storm of doubt and despair churned relentlessly. The suite, once a sanctuary of whispered dreams, had become a gilded prison, its every luxurious detail now a stark reminder of the secrets that bound her. Jason emerged from the en-suite bathroom with his customary charm, his eyes twinkling as if sharing an unspoken joke. He took her hand with a tenderness that belied the undercurrents of control that now seemed to saturate every interaction. "Come, let's take a walk around the resort," he said, his voice soft yet commanding. In that simple invitation lay the promise of a perfect day, a day that would be filled with talk of future dreams and shared adventures. Outside, the resort was a marvel of nature and design. Verdant gardens burst with color, crystalline pools mirrored the vast blue sky, and carefully designed pathways wound through a landscape that seemed lifted from a painter's palette. As they strolled side by side, Jason spoke of the future with an ease that both comforted and unnerved Emily. He painted vivid pictures of a life together, of children's laughter echoing in sunlit rooms, of quiet evenings spent sharing secrets, and of adventures yet to come. Every word was a brushstroke, every smile a gentle caress that attempted to smooth away the growing fissures of doubt in her mind. But for Emily, each loving phrase now resonated like the clink of chains. The promises of tomorrow, so sweet and vivid in his tone, began to sound like the prelude to a trap from which there was no escape. With each step along the manicured paths, she felt the invisible bonds tighten around her spirit. The idyllic beauty of the surroundings, once a balm for her soul, now contrasted bitterly with the realization that every dream Jason spun was intricately interwoven with manipulation. As they passed a serene fountain, The water's gentle trickle provided a stark counterpoint to the silent turmoil within her. Jason's eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that was both loving and possessively unsettling. "Imagine our future together," he murmured, his voice imbued with a tenderness that quickly shifted into an unyielding decree. "A life so perfect that every hardship will be forgotten, every sorrow turned to joy." His words, meant to inspire hope, instead served to remind her of the carefully constructed cage that now encircled her. The walk, which should have been an affirmation of their shared bliss, turned into a subtle confrontation with the reality of her entrapment. Each affectionate gesture, the gentle squeeze of his hand, the lingering warmth of his gaze, felt like a reminder that she was a cherished possession, a prize locked away behind gilded bars. In the soft glow of the morning, every loving word became a weight, anchoring her to a life that was no longer her own. The promise of paradise had transformed into a snare, woven from the threads of his control and her own desperate need to believe in love. By the time they returned to their suite, the facade had begun to crumble. The opulent room, with its elegant furnishings and carefully arranged trinkets, now seemed less a home and more a stage for a performance where every smile masked a secret, and every tender caress concealed a chain. Emily's heart ached with the realization that the sweet promises of the morning were nothing more than the prelude to a trap that would bind her forever. As she stood silently in the doorway of the suite, the truth settled over her like a shroud. She was caught in a trap so sweetly disguised by love that escape seemed nearly impossible. Yet beneath the layers of carefully rehearsed affection, a fierce resolve began to kindle. She would find a way out of this gilded cage, even if it meant unraveling every illusion that had once made her heart soar. The day's idyllic scenes had betrayed her, and now, with every step that echoed in the quiet corridors of her soul, Emily prepared herself for the arduous battle ahead, a battle for the freedom that was rightfully hers. As twilight descended over the resort, painting the sky in hues of crimson and violet, Emily retreated into the solitude of her thoughts. The gentle murmur of the day had given way to a quiet urgency that thrummed beneath her skin. Alone in the suite, she began to plot a course of escape, a plan born not out of mere impulse but from a desperate need to reclaim her life from the carefully orchestrated prison Jason had built around her. With trembling determination, she retrieved her phone and laptop, turning them into instruments of liberation. Every click was an act of defiance against the meticulously controlled narrative that had come to define her existence. Emily scoured flight listings, comparing destinations and departure times, her eyes fixed on the promise of a future far from this gilded cage. Each confirmed reservation felt like a small victory, a tangible step toward reclaiming her freedom. In quiet corners of the suite, she gathered the few personal items that had always belonged solely to her: a small bag containing a change of clothes, a cherished scarf that carried the scent of her former, unburdened self, and a modest sum of cash stashed away as an insurance against the unknown. Every object she collected was a symbol of her determination to break free from the carefully constructed lies that had so thoroughly entangled her. Throughout the day, Emily maintained a carefully measured demeanor. To Jason, she was the picture of contentment, the loving wife who reveled in every moment of their seemingly perfect life. Yet behind her practiced smiles and gentle laughter, a silent rebellion was taking shape. Her heart pounded with each passing minute, each tick of the clock a reminder that her window of opportunity was narrowing. Every time she glanced at the door, she imagined the moment when she would finally step out and leave behind the life that had been built on deception. As dusk gave way to night, the resort's opulence took on a different aspect, a deceptive tranquility that masked a labyrinth of surveillance and control. Emily's pulse raced with the knowledge that every plan had its risks, and that one wrong move could shatter the fragile hope that now burned within her. Still, the possibility of freedom was too alluring to ignore. In the quiet isolation of her room, she rehearsed the details of her escape with a clarity born of both fear and fierce determination. By the time the clock neared midnight, Emily's resolve had crystallized into a singular, unyielding purpose. She would leave this place tonight. With every carefully calculated step, she believed she could slip away from the golden prison Jason had so meticulously constructed. And though the cost of freedom was uncertain, the promise of a life unshackled by secrets was a prize worth every risk. As the suite fell silent and the only sounds were the soft hum of the air conditioner and her own steady breaths, Emily steeled herself for the inevitable confrontation with fate. Tonight, in the depths of darkness, she would seize her only chance at liberation, and in doing so, risk everything for the hope of a new beginning. Under the cloak of night, Emily sought refuge in the one place she hoped would offer her a temporary escape from the suffocating atmosphere of the resort, the spa. The spa's warm, inviting interior, filled with soft music and the gentle scent of lavender and eucalyptus, had long been a sanctuary for weary souls. Today it was to be her alibi, a carefully constructed pretense to mask her desperate bid for freedom. Stepping into the tranquil lobby, she allowed herself a brief moment of hope. The ambient light, the hushed murmur of soothing voices, and the gentle trickle of water from a decorative fountain all promised a temporary reprieve from the relentless pressure that had come to define her days. With a practiced smile, Emily approached the reception desk and explained that she had an appointment for a day of pampering, a subtle excuse that would afford her the precious minutes needed to slip away unnoticed. However, as the receptionist's fingers danced over the keyboard and the soft glow of the computer screen reflected on her face, a frown crept into her expression. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said in a tone that was polite but unmistakably puzzled, "but there's no reservation under your name." In that instant, Emily's heart froze. The comforting illusion of safety evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping dread that told her this was no clerical error, it was a trap. Before she could formulate a response, a deep, measured voice resonated from behind her. "Why didn't you tell me you wanted to go to the spa?" The words were not addressed by the receptionist, but seemed to emerge from the very air itself. Slowly, Emily turned, and there, framed by the soft light of the lobby, stood Jason. His expression was calm, his eyes dark and unreadable, as if he had anticipated her every move. In that instant, the sanctuary of the spa transformed into an arena of control, every comforting detail now a harbinger of entrapment. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears as the realization struck her with brutal clarity. Her meticulously laid plans had been anticipated. The spa, once a haven of respite, was nothing more than another stage in Jason's carefully orchestrated performance. A performance in which every step, every escape attempt, was preordained by his unyielding vigilance. The soft strains of ambient music and the gentle rustle of towels became the eerie soundtrack to her newfound captivity. For a long, agonizing moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. The deceptive calm of the spa's interior was shattered by the weight of his presence, his every gesture a reminder that she was ensnared in a trap from which there was no easy exit. The freedom she had so desperately sought now seemed like a distant, unattainable dream, one that was slipping further away with each passing heartbeat. In that stifling moment, as the chill of reality sank into her bones, Emily realized with a dread that was as profound as it was final, there was no sanctuary here. Every carefully constructed escape route had been preempted, every promise of reprieve twisted into another link in the chain that bound her to Jason. And so, trapped in the very place that was meant to offer solace, she faced the crushing truth that freedom was not a promise to be taken for granted. It was a battle, and one in which she was already losing. With the sting of entrapment still fresh in her heart, Emily was led back to the suite by Jason's gentle but inescapable grip. The opulent corridors, once heralds of luxury and freedom, now closed in around her like the walls of a suffocating cage. "I know what's on your mind," Jason murmured softly as they walked. His tone, simultaneously tender and possessive, was designed to soothe yet only deepen the chill of despair that gripped her soul.
"There is nothing to fear, my love. I care for you too much to let any harm come your way."
But his words rang hollow in the echoing silence of the hallways. Each step she took felt weighted by the knowledge that every meticulously orchestrated detail of her life was under his control. The lavish decor that once made her heart soar now appeared as nothing more than gilded bars on a prison cell, a golden cage from which there was no escape. The realization was as bitter as it was absolute. Every loving gesture, every whispered promise, was a thread in the web he had woven around her, trapping her with the illusion of security. Once inside the suite, the atmosphere was suffused with an eerie calm. The soft lighting and sumptuous furnishings, which had once been symbols of their shared happiness, now served as stark reminders of the inescapable bondage that defined her existence. In the quiet solitude of the room, as she faced the man who had once been her beacon of hope, Emily's eyes searched his for any sign of vulnerability or remorse. Instead, she found only an unwavering determination, a cold, calculated resolve that left no room for compromise. Her mind raced with the implications of her predicament. Every detail, every artifact of their life together, now revealed itself as an instrument of control, a carefully curated performance that silenced any dissent or questioning. The dreamlike haze of their early days had evaporated, replaced by a stark reality in which freedom was nothing more than an illusion. Jason's reassurances, though delivered in tones of affection, were in reality shackles that bound her ever tighter. In that stifling moment, Emily realized that there was no hidden door, no secret passage that could lead her away from this carefully constructed trap. Her attempts at escape, however well planned, were anticipated and neutralized at every turn. The life she had believed in, the life of tender intimacy and shared dreams, was nothing more than a labyrinth of manipulation, with Jason at its center as both its creator and warden. As she stood there, trapped in the cold light of truth, a deep sadness mingled with a fierce resolve began to stir within her. She knew that if there was ever a chance to reclaim her life, it would come at a price far greater than she had ever imagined. The golden cage around her heart was not just a symbol of her current entrapment, it was a challenge to her very will to survive. And even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a spark of defiance ignited, whispering that perhaps one day, she would find a way to shatter the chains and reclaim her freedom. That night, when the resort was enveloped in a hushed darkness punctuated only by distant echoing sounds, Emily found herself alone with her turbulent thoughts. Jason had fallen into a restless sleep, his gentle snores a stark counterpoint to the furious beating of her heart. It was in this fragile moment of solitude that Emily resolved to make her final bid for freedom, a desperate, dangerous act that could alter the course of her life forever. Quietly, she slipped out of the bed, her every movement measured and deliberate. Clad in the soft darkness of the suite, she gathered her few precious belongings, her passport, a modest sum of cash hidden away for emergencies, and the small key to the door, each item a symbol of her hope for a life beyond these gilded walls. Every step she took toward the door was accompanied by a mix of adrenaline and fear, each heartbeat echoing the urgency of her flight. As she reached for the cold metal handle of the door, her trembling fingers brushed against the smooth surface, and she hesitated for a single harrowing second. It was at that precise moment that a chilling voice sliced through the silence. "Did you really think you could run from me?" The words, laced with a menace that froze her in place, made her heart seize. Emily turned slowly, her eyes widening in horror as she saw Jason standing in the dim corridor, his eyes dark and unyielding, his presence a stark reminder that escape was a futile dream. In that frozen moment, the corridor became an arena for the final confrontation, a battle between her desperate longing for freedom and his unyielding grip on her life. Jason stepped forward, his figure emerging from the shadows with an aura of cold authority. "I love you, Emily," he murmured, his voice deceptively tender yet edged with a threat that sent shivers down her spine. Every word he spoke was a chain, binding her further into the web of his control. A surge of defiance welled up inside her, fueled by the raw terror of being trapped. Summoning every ounce of courage, Emily squared her shoulders and prepared to fight back. In that instant, the quiet of the night shattered into a cacophony of emotions, the clash of hope and despair, of freedom and captivity. The door, so tantalizingly close to the promise of escape, seemed to call out to her as the battlefield where her fate would be decided. For a heartbeat, time itself seemed to hesitate. Then, with a cry that was as much a prayer as a battle cry, Emily lunged for the door, determined to break the cycle of her confinement. The ensuing struggle was a blur of desperate movements, a clash of wills where every second stretched into eternity. Jason's grip tightened, his presence an overwhelming force that threatened to crush her spirit. In the midst of the chaos, the corridor was filled with the sounds of scuffling footsteps, whispered curses, and the pounding of a heart determined to break free. The battle waged on for what felt like an eternity, a silent war waged in the dim light of a night that cared little for the fates of mortals. And as the struggle reached its crescendo, Emily's eyes burned with tears, not just of fear, but of fierce, unyielding determination. She would not surrender. Even as Jason's strength seemed to dominate the space between them, the fire of her resolve burned bright enough to challenge the darkness. In the bitter aftermath of the struggle, as the night settled back into an uneasy quiet, Emily found herself standing face to face with a man who had become both her captor and her tormentor. The air between them was charged with a mix of raw emotion and unspoken understanding, a silent acknowledgement that every act of rebellion came at a price. With trembling determination, she met Jason's gaze, her voice quivering as she demanded, "Jason, what are you hiding from me?" Her words were laced with equal parts sorrow and defiance, a final plea for the truth that had eluded her for so long. For a long, excruciating moment, silence reigned as the space between them seemed to stretch into infinity.
"10, slowly, a cold, unsettling smile curved Jason's lips.
"I chose you, Emily," he murmured, his tone both possessive and strangely tender.
"And you chose me."
His words, meant to reassure, instead served as a stark reminder that in this twisted game of love and control, there could be no escape from the cost that freedom demanded. Each syllable was a binding contract, a promise that her rebellion would be met with consequences far graver than she had ever imagined. As the reality of his declaration sank in, Emily felt a crushing weight settle upon her chest. Every dream of liberation, every whisper of hope, was now shadowed by the understanding that freedom was never free. It came with a cost, a price paid in tears, in pain, and in the sacrifice of one's very soul. The room, once filled with the soft glow of shared memories, now pulsed with the dark rhythm of betrayal. Every detail of their life together, the carefully curated smiles, the orchestrated moments of intimacy, was revealed as part of a web woven to keep her imprisoned. Her heart ached as she realized that the man who had promised her a lifetime of love was in fact the architect of her downfall. The realization was both devastating and transformative, a painful acknowledgement that the price of freedom was a wound so deep that it would forever alter the course of her life. In that charged moment, standing before Jason with tears glistening in her eyes, Emily knew that if she ever hoped to reclaim her autonomy, she would have to risk everything, even her own life. The silence that followed was heavy with the unspoken promise of retribution. In the depths of that night, as the shadows closed in around them, Emily vowed that she would fight for the freedom that seemed so tantalizingly close yet so perilously out of reach. With each beat of her heart, she resolved to defy the chains that bound her, even if it meant paying a price that she was not sure she could bear. In the final moments of a night that had become a crucible of hope and despair, Emily knew that her destiny hung in a delicate balance. As Jason stepped closer, his presence an ever-tightening shackle, she saw in his eyes the cold certainty of a man who believed that no one could ever escape his control. In that charged atmosphere, with the world reduced to the small confines of their luxurious suite, Emily felt the last vestiges of her courage coalesce into a single desperate decision. Without warning, she lunged for a heavy lamp on the bedside table, a final weapon in a battle where her very life was at stake. With a cry that was equal parts terror and defiance, she swung the lamp in a powerful arc. The impact was sudden and brutal, and for a split second, time itself seemed to pause as Jason staggered backward, his eyes wide with shock.
The sound of shattering glass and the toot of the lamp reverberated, trug the room like the toll of a finale verdict.
Seizing that fleeting moment, Emily bolted for the door, her heart pounding like a drum of rebellion. In the chaos that followed, alarms blared and the shouts of hotel staff erupted, echoing through the corridors like the heralds of impending doom. With every desperate step, she felt the fragile hope of escape burn brighter even as the terror of recapture loomed large. The main entrance beckoned, a symbol of freedom that now lay tantalizingly close. Just as the cool night air seemed to promise salvation, a strong hand clamped down on her wrist. A low, mocking whisper brushed against her ear. "Did you really think it would be this easy?" Jason's grip was unyielding, his eyes alight with a possessive triumph that shattered the fragile illusion of safety. In that final heart-wrenching moment, as tears streamed down her face and the tumult of chaos roared around her, Emily realized that her fight was far from over. The promise of freedom, so tantalizing and yet so cruelly elusive, had revealed its true cost, a price measured not in currency but in the raw, unfiltered pain of betrayal. As Jason's presence loomed over her, a symbol of a life that had been both her prison and her passion, she understood that this was not the end but merely the beginning of a new, darker chapter. The battle for her soul was only just beginning, and every moment of defiance would come at a cost that threatened to reshape her very identity. In that final twist of fate, as she struggled against the inexorable grip of a man who claimed her heart as his own, Emily steeled herself for the journey ahead, a journey where the price of freedom might be the ultimate sacrifice. And as the night swallowed her cries and the light of dawn beckoned from a distant horizon, she resolved to fight on, knowing that even the deepest wounds could, in time, give birth to a strength that no chain could ever hold.
Thank you for watching until the end.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.
I'd love to hear your two cooks. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think.
Stay tuned for more thrilling stories. See you in the next one.